Well, hello, good afternoon, and welcome along to our Analytics Half an Hour. This afternoon, we're going to tackle tagging in Google Analytics and look at the ways in which our ROIFixer service at ROIFixer.com, the base level of which is free, will help you do this. So, just before we get started, a word about me. I'm Vernon Riley. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer, and I've spent my career working with systems and processes. So, I apply engineering insights to ensure that the measurement and reporting systems that go alongside analytics are tailored to fit business, your business potentially. Just a word about the interface in your browser if you're watching this live. It's fairly simple. To the right of the main window, there's a sidebar. One of the tabs is the chat window, and in that you can post messages to me and I can post messages back. Now, I'll do my best to keep up with the messages, but obviously, as you'll understand, I can't necessarily read and respond to all of those messages whilst I'm concentrating on talking to everyone else. So I'm hoping you've heard all of this, and with that, we'll get going. Okay, so ROIFixer at its heart has a dialogue, a main dialogue, and I've set it here to show the business-friendly questions. One of the snags with some of the other dialogues that are out there, sprinkled around the place over the internet, is that they assume that you're some kind of technical geek and that putting it in precise language is the right thing for you. So what we've done deliberately here is to acknowledge the fact that not everybody wants technically precise questions. Perhaps they'll find it easier to understand which web page do you want people to land on than, what's the target URL, right? Because not everybody is familiar with the jargon, right? So a lot of things about jargon and also explanations, because whilst source, medium, campaign would appear to be relatively simple to understand, there are nuances and the more complete understanding that you have about what it is you're trying to communicate by using these when it gets into the Google Analytics report, the easier you'll find it to pick the right terminology and then to read the reports that result. So we've got a business-friendly mode, and we've got a technically precise mode. And you'll see the questions and some of the examples change a bit according to which mode you pick. But more important than the way of asking the questions, this dialogue, unlike most, recognizes that there are a variety of marketing channels that you might be using, and not all of them are online. Absolutely no reason why they should all be online. There are cases when you are going to use physical marketing. So you may be putting links on printed matter that you're putting on a stand at an exhibition, or you may be sending them through the post, snail mail, and in those cases, a reasonable use of source, right, is where did you put the information, right? It's shown here as target web page URL, but where's the source location that you're going to put the content, right? So an exhibition, or it's a networking event, or whatever, it might be, some event that you've gone to, right? Now, it can make some sense to record the type of printed matter, right? A flyer or a brochure in that context, right? So what sort of content are you providing, and call that the medium, right? Now, don't make it too precise, because in principle, you want mediums to be relatively few in number and to span a whole lot of sources. So email or physical mail, but within printed matter, a brochure, a multi-page brochure or a flyer, that's a perfectly reasonable distinction to make, because you'll have lots of brochures, lots of flyers that you could use, right? And self-evidently, what's the campaign reference or name, right? Now, one of the really important aspects of using physical mailing, physical marketing, is that you're not going to expect the reader to type all the gobbledygook that Google would like them to have to tell it about the source, medium, and campaign. So Google has this idea that it's all digital and it doesn't matter, and you can have all of these complex strings and people will know what to do with them, and that's fine. But if you're printing a brochure, it's idle to think that somebody's going to bother working out what all the characters are and bother to type all that lot. So you want an alias. So you see, there's a what page address or what page URL will you print, right? You know, example.com/exhibition 2015 or whatever the answer. And I'll work through an example in a moment, right? So you have to recognize what's going to happen. And this is even more true when you get to word of mouth. So let's suppose you're giving a speech or you're talking to people, right? Where are you going to give them the content, right? Is it a radio show? You know, what's the mechanism, right, that you're using? Is it a 60-second intro? Is it a documentary, right? And where are you giving them the content? You know, the campaign. Well, it's, you know, it's the month of July, it's 2015. And what are you going to say that they will remember, right? And be able to type without making mistakes. Again, not the gobbledygook that Google might think that people want to use, right? So let's work through an example. And in this case, I'll work through an online example in a minute, but just to say the online version, which domain will the content go on? It might be twitter.com, it might be facebook.com. You know, what's the format of the content, right? Is it a status update? Is it a blog post? You know, uses for the medium, right? You can use it as email and stuff like that, but it winds up being fairly uninformative, right? So make it a little bit richer. That can help you when you come to look at the reports. And because it's online and numbers of times you can't use the full URL with all of this stuff that Google likes, you want a link shortener. So we've put in the Google link shortener in. So it'll produce the shortened link that you want for Twitter or for Facebook status updates or something like that. So let's have a walkthrough. Let's have a look at a completed dialogue. Well, you see, I've put in a target page, example.com/L page or landing page or something like that. A domain that the content would go on, twitter.com. Format, status update. The campaign name, right? And when you press the button down at the bottom left-hand side, generate my link address, a number of things happen. First of all, it generates the full link, right? The link that is example.com/L page ? Right? UTM_source equals, and then the name you've put, twitter.com with the domain on which the content's going to go. UTM_medium, after an ampersand, equals status update, the media, right? And the campaign name, right? It shortens it as well to provide the shortened URL, goo.gl, and then / that code name, right? And it then goes and sends you an email, right? Because one of the challenges with doing tagging in any system is, what did I ask it to do? Because it doesn't mean, because you see it in the Google Analytics report, that you've got the full set of all of the codes that you've defined. What you see in Google Analytics reports in any period is the full set that have been used by visitors, and the two could be very different things. So it's worth thinking about how you're going to record the choices that you make for source, medium, and campaign, because you probably want to have some scheme for doing it. So sending an email, right, will help. And if you look in detail at this email, right, you'll see that there are listed the source, the medium, and the campaign, right? And it's giving you the alias, right? Now, it also tells you what you'll need to do if you're going to put an alias and you're doing some physical marketing or some word of mouth marketing, which is that you're going to need to put a file in right, that contains the redirection code, right? Because the principle on which it works is that we've said we don't want to try and ask the user to have to type all this stuff in that Google wants, right? But having decided that we don't want the users to have to type it in, we still have to give it to Google if we want Google to actually put it into our report. So what we do is we create a page that is just a simple alias, right? And then that page redirects the visitor to the real page, right? Putting in all the stuff that Google would want, right? And there are a number of mechanisms. A lot of people are using PHP on their websites. So there's an explanation here as to how you might do this in PHP, right? And an explanation as to how you might do it if you'd got WordPress and you had something like the redirection plugin, right? Where you want to put the source URL, what you want to put in there, and what you put in as the final answer, right? So that's at the start. Now, it may be that you feel that you want more help, that this is all right, but it's insufficient. Well, in that case, there's a bronze level service that actually sends you the real code, right? So we've gone, it's a premium level, and from the calculations done on the basis of what you entered into the dialogue, it works out what the code should be, right? And it forms it into a file that you could upload and you could put onto your web server, right? In a directory called whatever, whatever it needs to be, in order that the redirection happens in the way you want it. And in all of these cases, you can write to me, you can get support, we can help you get into the way of doing this, because this is should be part of your editorial process, right? Now, there's no particular mystery. I want to explain as clearly as I can. If you're looking for what the code should say, right, in that file, and you want to work it out, right, fine. It's relatively simple. It's 3 or 4 lines, in PHP, and the crux of it is you want the header command, and it says the location is not the file that you want the visitor to go. Location is not where we are now, but you want them to go to example.com/lpage, and then all this stuff, the stuff that you've defined that Google will want in order to put source, medium, and campaign into the reports, right? So that's it. You've got a system that you can embed into an editorial process. At the basic level, it will explain how to do it, and you can get support, and we'll help you do that. If you go for the bronze level, it'll send you the actual code. There are more facilities at each level, but effectively what we're trying to do is to create a service that makes it easy for you to do the tagging as part of your editorial process. So we wanted to make sure that there was friendly and or technically precise language available, that there were some simple examples, that there's some videos, that you've got some emails that will help you implement the solution. And even if you're a corporate user and you're thinking about naming conventions, which gets important once you get to a reasonable size of a tagging and editorial system, then you want to put the tags that you've created into a database, right? And you want to be able to pull those back and to see them in order that you don't wind up generating new variants of every single name, that you have some reasonably common naming standards, right? So that's it. That's a fairly brief and to the point walkthrough of ROIFixer.com. I hope that was helpful and made some sense. If you want to find out more and have a play with the ROIFixer.com starter service, you can find it at ROIFixer.com/starter. If there's something that didn't make sense, by all means, send me an email. I'll put my details in on the next slide for you. We'd like to get your feedback on what you thought of the webinar and get your suggestions for what we can do to make it more helpful in future. So there we go. Right, I'm just going to send you the link for actually going and telling us what you thought. Right, so that's it. I hope you found that helpful. Right, and if you've got any further comments that you'd like to make, right, do get in touch with me. There's my LinkedIn profile. There's my email. And there's the website. So this is Vernon Riley saying thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along to our Analytics Half Hour. I hope you found that useful. And I'll look forward to talking to you the next time. Bye for now.